everyone. I am Chelsea Cohen. I'm one of the staff development officers here at Peralta. We have Marla Leech,
Hello, everyone.
she's my co-pilot, and then Natasha Spivey is also here. Is that you, Natasha? Do you want to introduce yourself briefly? Well,
She is.
Hey everyone, I'm so sorry I am driving, but just wanted to say hello and welcome.
Yay.
Welcome. She's coordinating the Professional Development Learning Center at the district. And this is our first ever speaker series that we collaborated on. And this spring, we have a really exciting lineup of colleagues who will be sharing their passions and expertise with us. And today, I am honored to introduce our first speaker, who happens to also be a very dear friend of mine, Dr. Adrienne Oliver. And Dr. Oliver is an English instructor at Laney College. She uses hip hop instructional practices to infuse her classes with a student-centered learning perspective. Her approach to building a sense of community among students promotes a culture of high engagement. As a published poet, community storytelling, curator, and instructional design specialist, she wears so many hats. She leverages her current hobbies and interests to design innovative curriculum to support student success. She's been teaching writing for 20 years and serving as a teacher consultant for UC Berkeley's Bay Area Writing Project since 2017. Woo-woo! So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Adrienne, and this is When Faculty Flourish, Leveraging Our Joy to Sustain Student Success.
Thank you for that awesome introduction, and thank you all for being here. And Chelsea and Marla, I made you all co-hosts, so if anybody else comes in, you can admit them. But just for the people who are here already, thank you so much for being a part of this kickoff of the speaker series. I didn't realize that this was the first ever Laney Professional Development Speaker Series, so I feel so honored to kick it off. And then also it's on February the 29th, which is a leap year. So it's like all these amazing kind of synchronicities happening. So let's jump into talking about some joy. I'm going to share my screen. And let's see, can you guys see that okay? Let me try that again.
We just saw a black screen.
Okay. I don't think I have any sound, but I'll share sound anyway. How about that?
Now we can see it.
Okay. So when faculty flourish, welcome. We're going to talk about how you can leverage some joy to serve students. And Chelsea already introduced me, so that'll be really quick. But I also want to give you space to introduce yourselves to each other. And then I'll share like the secret sauce of how I leverage joy to, just sustain as we work with our students and give some examples of that. And then we'll end. And so about me, I've been at Peralta since 2013. I started out as an adjunct and then was a part of that big full-time hiring that we did at Laney it was about 2015, I think, Chelsea. We came in at the same time. And before Peralta, I had been teaching comp. I moved here from Little Rock. So I started at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock and taught for the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And then, just transitioned that composition career here at Peralta. And since Peralta, though, I really feel that I've learned so much from my colleagues here. I was sharing before we started the recording that everybody here is just so brilliant and dedicated and passionate about helping our students. And I think we really feed off the passion that our students bring because they have to overcome so much to be here. And I'm just so inspired by the students every day. So since Peralta, I feel like I've really flourished as, a composition career person from working with the students here. And so having said that, I want you can either put in the chat or our group is small enough for us to go around and just share just how long you've been at Peralta. And just for the sake of time, one word that describes your life before Peralta. And I'll give you 3 words to describe your life since Peralta. And I'll call on, I don't know, Steve. Steven first.
Hi, one word before Peralta.
How long
Four.
have you been at Peralta?
I've been at Peralta since 2006.
Wow.
I know it's hard to believe. And where's my kitty cat?
Oh.
Uh, let's see. So one word, yes. I mean, Peralta really helped me become more stable financially. So, and since Peralta, I would say community, both like in my department and on campus and with students. And a second word, um, what comes to mind is chair, because that is a big part of my life. And a third word, life since Peralta. Well, I am looking forward to retirement. I'll just toss that in there.
Yes.
That idea does
Joy.
bring me a lot of joy. Okay, I'll pass it on.
Okay, and you could pick the next person. And if you don't want to speak, you can put it in the chat too. I'll read it for you.
Okay, how about D'Ebony?
The Ebony.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adrienne. I've been with Peralta since fall of 2021 and recently last semester became full-time. I don't know if I said that, but in EOPS counselor. And so before Peralta, related to being part-time, I would just say freeway flyer. And since Peralta, the big one that comes to mind is resilience. Yeah, just with working with my student population. Oh, I'm saying too much. So resilience. Social justice.
Yeah.
Resources.
Yes.
And I will pass it to Laura.
Laura.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, just logging in. 5-6 years. Non-profit.
Mhm.
I'm gonna cheat for words all over the place.
All over the place.
And I'm sorry, I don't know who went already, but I'll pass it on to Steve.
He's already went, so somebody.
So what about Marla?
Marla.
Howdy, howdy. I have been here at Peralta for even more than Steve. I've been here for 21 years. It's hard to even believe. Before that, I was at City College of San Francisco, and I was also a film editor and documentary filmmaker. So before Peralta in one word, oops, sorry, see the admit thing. There we go. Before Peralta in one word, I would say freelancer. And since Peralta in 3 words, definitely awareness. Social justice is 2 words, but social justice and just responsibility. I feel like over the last 20 years, I've just become way more responsible and just kind of aware of what I do affects other people and myself.
Mhm.
Oh, and I'm going to pass to Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chelsea. I've been here since 2013 as well. Before Peralta, I would say I was uprooted. And then since Peralta, the 3 words that came to mind was just have found community. I really feel at home at Peralta. I'll pass to Kim.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Okay, before Peralta, oh my gosh.
And how
That-
long at Peralta?
Yeah, that was 2001. but I cheated because I left Peralta a couple times and came back. So before Peralta, I would just say naive is my word. And since Peralta, I had it when you guys were talking, but I lost it. Mature. I've gained maturity in these years. Collaboration. I've learned the importance of collaboration, and just immense respect for a bunch of different people, students, colleagues, everyone, respect.
Nice.
And I will pass this to, how about Sharon?
Sharon, you have the prompts up there. I know you just joined us, but how long at Peralta, before Peralta in 1 word, and since Peralta in 3 words? Oh, Sharon, are you there?
Sharon might be doing some drop-in counseling, so
Oh, okay.
might be
We'll
doing
choose the
might be
next
doing double W. How about Cy?
Hi, I'm Cy Bracy from Merritt College.
Hi.
Hi there. Prior to Peralta, and I've been at Peralta off and on, I was at Oakland Unified. And my 3 words are more than 3. I do best in the classroom, cannot stand online teaching. It's not for me. I love seeing the students. Classroom is where I belong.
Okay. Classrooms are, so then I think we have 2 more people. So you could call on, I think, Jason or
Or
Natasha.
Jason, okay? Call on Jason.
Jason.
And I think Jason wrote something in the chat because I know he's on drop-in.
Oh, okay. Let me see.
So whoever you choose works for me.
Okay. Thank you, Cy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, there's Sharon.
I'm not Sharon, I'm Katie, and Sty, you're in my yoga class. With Karen, yoga with Karen. I am trying to log onto this computer and somehow I got through on Sharon, but I'm not Sharon. Don't ask me why. I had to find a classroom computer because we don't have them in the department.
Oh, that's fine.
Years at Peralta. I can't think of 1 word for before Peralta. Junior high, and collaboration, students and teachers since Peralta.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. And I think we've given everybody opportunity to share in the space. Natasha, you're our last. Is that everybody? I'm trying to go through the list. Yeah, Natasha.
Okay, great. So let's see. I've been at Peralta, excuse me, since 1996. And so next month will be my 28th anniversary. So
Wow.
1 word before Peralta, I would say young. I was very, very young when I started at Peralta. And so 3 words since Peralta, I'd say growth, because I've basically grown up here. Another word would be flexibility, having to work through so many different administrations and seeing so much change over the years. I've definitely learned to be flexible. And then another word would be, I guess, community, because it's kind of like a family at this point. And so I think that was my 3.
That was perfect. Thank
Yes.
you. And congratulations on your 28th year anniversary. That is so awesome. And
Thank
that's
you.
really, and this is one of the ways. So we're leveraging joy right now, just to give you a little meta cognitive moment by just hearing each other's voice and experience and getting to learn a little bit more about our colleagues across the district. And I do a lot of this kind of space warming up in my composition classes too. So now we'll get into the meat of the presentation, or the core of the presentation. Funny for a vegan lady to be like the meat, but the core of the presentation, leveraging joy. For me, it starts with critical authenticity. So of course, there's multiple ways we could talk about leveraging joy, but my framework is rooted in critical theory. I'm really interested in pedagogy of the oppressed. And for the past week, since I knew I was going to do this presentation, I was struggling with how to get it into an hour to talk about. I'll just say the Twitter version, or I guess the X version of critical authenticity, is just being so authentic in the knowing, especially with the population that we serve, that the academy as a power structure in America really wasn't created for Black and Brown students. And so that's why I really love the work of Frary. I really love this is critical pedagogy, where Jeff Duncan Andrade proposes an approach to teaching where we involve students, similar to pedagogy of the oppressed. It's always about centering student voice, centering student story, no matter what discipline we're teaching. And I'm a big fan of the work of Bell Hooks. And teaching to transgress is kind of like my teaching Bible. So for me, and we talked about, and all of the words you said kind of resonate with this concept or this stance of being critically authentic in your approach to teaching, because you mentioned social justice, you mentioned community, you mentioned collaboration, all the things that are at the heart of what kind of fuel my joy and my approach to creating my assignments. And and I would say, I would just challenge us as faculty and as counselors and classified who all's here to think about how we can extend that to involving students as being kind of just co-laborers in the work that we're doing to educate them. And they, I learn from them too. That's why I was saying at the beginning of the presentation that since I started teaching here, I've grown as a faculty too. And just learning how I can start with, as Frary proposes in his manifesto, not that banking method of education, but that problem posing where we use the students. Whatever experience students bring into the classroom, my assignments adjust to kind of fit whatever their lived experience is. And since I started doing that, that was very new. I began that approach to teaching when I started at Peralta. And when I started doing that, it did bring me a lot of joy to create that space for students. And so this is, in a nutshell, this was the X or Twitter version of all of that theory that informs my framework and my approach to leveraging joy, is that from an informed awareness of the oppressive history of academia, engage in reflection and praxis, a fancy word for practice, towards the aim of deconstructing the academy to reconstruct it as a space for joy. And so that's my active project. I'm constantly, even though we have learning outcomes, and in my discipline, as I teach in English, essays, which sometimes students come in resentful because the counselors made them take the course because it's required. I had a conversation with a student yesterday in office hours who said, yeah, I'm an architecture student and I'm so surprised that, I have to come through this class on my way. And I just hear that all the time, but they're just like, why am I taking this? So in that moment, me as someone standing in critical authenticity, I'm going to try to infuse some joy and use her lived experience as someone who's interested in architecture to talk about writing essays as a form of architecture. Like, it is like your thesis is your blueprint, your paragraphs are your building block. And so just being able to just connect to students' experience so that they feel more joyful about what it is they're studying with you. And so basically I DJ my own interests and passions to make the classroom be a space of joy. As Chelsea mentioned in the bio, I'm really interested in hip hop. This was my poor attempt at learning how to do, break dancing. I still can't do it, but I try. And then going to like conferences about self-care and how to just be well holistically. I brought one of my poet friends to one of my creative writing class, just showing the joy of poetry and spoken word. And this is me at a spoken word event. And this is me reading and going to Black History museums. This is my sister. She doesn't know she's in my work presentation today, but I'm pretty sure she'll be honored to be featured. But oh my gosh. Let me go back. So you saw the preview already. I'm going to have you do a little bit of homework and think about your own interests and how you can leverage your joy so that your outside passions and interests inform the assignments or your approach if you're a counselor to interacting with students. So that's a little bit about how I bring in, as a writer, as a poet, as a storyteller, all these things into my assignments. And in the examples section, I'll show you how this interest shows up in the assignments for my comp classes. But I want to give you a little bit of time to think about how you would DJ your own life. And let me backtrack and say, because I take for granted that everybody knows what I mean by DJ. Because DJ, I'm envisioning that person who's like mixing beats and sampling different sounds to create a new sound. And so in that previous slide, when you saw all the pictures of me, that's all of the samples or the sounds that I use to create the assignments in my course. And so you should be able to scan this or type this website into your browser, another window in your browser. And what that will pull up is a Padlet where you can, let me pull up that Padlet too. And since we only have an hour together, I can only give you like 7 minutes to do this. And you can, let me reshare my screen. Come back to this exercise though and brainstorm some more. Because I've been thinking about this question for a long time. And so I know within 7 minutes, it may be hard to get through all 4 of these prompts. But the first question is just choose an interest that can serve as a tool for bringing your most authentic and joyful self to the relationships that you develop between your colleagues. For what do you like to do for fun? And then I see your hand, Laura. I'm going to go through these and come through and answer questions. The second one is what hobby or personal interest can you use as a tool to help challenge the traditional notions of pedagogy, or like I was saying about how a lot of our academies were not built for us. And then the third one, what are 3 adjectives that describe who you are and what you value? That's just in a general sense, how that can begin to inform what we do and bring in joy. And then the last one we probably won't get to, but after completing questions 1 through 3, write a sentence or 2 that details how you'll use your values or hobbies to create curriculum or an assignment. And Laura, saw you had your hand up.
All good. Just wanted the link, but it's in the chat now. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
But it would be nice to see the QR code again, because then I could do it on a separate.
Oh, okay. Let me.
It's there.
Oops. Did I share it? Can you
We
see
have
it, Kim? Just a few more
thank you.
seconds. I'm going to see what all we have on our Padlet. Trying to toggle between the screens. Okay. Oh, I love these. I see arts and crafts, cooking, yoga, eating delicious food, dance, mindfulness, breathing, story writing. My biggest joy right now is running, but I also love music, especially live music. I enjoy viewing art, playing music, volunteering. And then some of the values we have, I value kindness, love, and encouraging others, adventurous friendliness, connection building. kind, intersectional, in-service, critical thinking, nurturing, advocacy, care, travel, generosity, respect, encouragement, welcoming, and adventurous. And a few people have made it over to number 4. This semester, my class visited the Oakland Museum and centered our speaking and listening on the art there. I usually take students to view the history section. That's awesome. I love taking students to the Oakland Museum. Find stories and poems that challenge traditional pedagogy. Love it. Having regular breathing so that when we have speaking or exercises or presentations, students will already have a breathing practice. Awesome. Incorporate my own authenticity, quirkiness, I love it, and music lyrics to relate to students. Yoga involves breathing through uncomfortable postures to foster awareness. Yes. And the book, I don't know if you may have already read it, Chelsea, but Pose, Wobble, and Flow is so awesome.
Thank you.
Anybody want to say anything about what you wrote or the experience of thinking about your joy? And do you already have, well, some of you already mentioned like ideas for assignments, or how you can leverage what you wrote on the Padlet to create an assignment or an experience if you interact with, I know for counselors, just how students come into the meeting with you, how you can use that. And I'll say, just to give some ideas and just jump in if anybody thinks of anything, like I love this idea of like advocacy and care, like how we can somehow let our classes or whatever we're teaching be a vehicle to building like student voice and advocacy in the community. And I do a lot of that in my own classes too. And I'll go into my example. I'm going to come back. If we have time, I'm going to come back. So just keep percolating, keep thinking about that. And I'll share some of my examples. Okay. Going back to that screen. I'm trying to still figure out that smooth Zoom transition with going back and forth, the Padlet to Zoom to Google Docs. I haven't figured it out. But, so here's my example. So some ways that I incorporate, these are some joy projects, some ways I incorporate what I'm doing outside of class into my work at Peralta. Is one of the things I've done is build an equitable teaching repository, which you all, by coming to this presentation, you're invited to join in this project with me. But what I'm doing is basically compiling a lot of different, like all of the stuff about Prairie and hooks is compiled into this repository, and thinking about how we can use some of that theoretical framework and interests and passions to start to dismantle the Academy to be a more inclusive and joyful space for our students. And as Chelsea mentioned, I've published a few poetry books, so I'm always keeping poetry at the forefront. These are some of the publishers where you can find my work. And I've participated in a few anthologies. One of them is Trauma, Tresses, and Truth, talking about like just hair and trauma. And Black Gold Storytellers, that's a community storytelling project that I curate. And I have a special invitation for you all at the end of this presentation. But I also want to share just like some classroom assignments, since I'm really interested in, I moved here from Little Rock, Arkansas. So just migrating, just that feeling of migrating and the reasons why we move is a real interest for me. And I read The Warmth of Other Suns when it was published. I forget what year it was published. It was a few years ago now. And started incorporating that into my courses and came up with this idea for students to tell their own migration stories. And if they, like, even if they hadn't moved from anywhere to Oakland or moved from anywhere to here, to maybe interview people in their families who have moved and write about them. So that's one example of an assignment. And a lot of those essays live at laneymigrationstories.blogspot.com. And so that's, for me, that was leveraging my joy in finding joy in poetry and storytelling and bringing that to the class and thinking, what kind of storytelling can I have students have the opportunity to do? Another way I've leveraged my joy is that, like I was saying, that interest in advocacy is having students research community or research how to be a part of a community. And so one of the things we're doing right now in my English 1A class, without me going like deep into critical theory with them, I just kind of sum up how to create research questions that question the dominant narrative or that question the stories that they hear that may not be particularly joyful. And so what they've done is started with writing questions that they have either about self-care or how to care for their communities. And right now in my current English 1A classes, I've already seen, and this has happened for the past few semesters, where I've brought in critical, that critical authenticity into my classes. A lot of students are like, they've never thought about how to, particularly with the self-care, community care. A lot of our students are already plugged into like caring for their communities, but particularly with the self-care, I've had students in office hours just like, I've never thought about that. And I'll never forget working with one student who was like having a really hard time. As you know, our students often have a lot of personal challenges that they're struggling with. And there were just moments we just cried in office hours because she's like, I don't know how to care for myself. I'm working all these jobs. I have to take care of my family and I want to take this English class. It's required for my blah, 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 And so this for me has really brought me so much joy to be able to use my English 1A class as a space for students to advocate for their own care and for care in their communities. And so that's just one example. And I hope, we have about 15 more minutes. We have a little time for you to think about how you could just return to what you've written on the Padlet to create an assignment in your courses that connects to what you've written directly. And I hope I've kind of modeled just that through line for me, that authentic, for me, that interest in storytelling, that interest in, similar to a lot of you, like advocacy and making room for student voice. I'm really all about making room for voice in the other than my own, because back to that Freudian approach, it's not just a top down, the sage on the stage pouring into the people in the presentation, but this is an experience where we all bring our expertise and intelligence and learn from that collective emergence of what we bring. And so I want to give you some time to reflect. I know it's really quickly, but maybe 3 or 4 minutes to return after you've looked at my examples. Now you've seen some examples of how you can use what you've written on the Padlet to create an assignment or an experience or something for students. And it could be something as simple. I'm thinking about counselors, but counselors, you guys teach classes too. So you could come up with assignments, but even if you were not teaching a class, like it was anonymous, but if you mentioned mindfulness or breathing as something that brings you joy, like what if at the start of a counseling session, you had students just take a mindful breath with you, something simple like that. And so return to the sentences that you wrote on the Padlet and brainstorm an assignment idea that relates to the values or the hobbies that you listed. So you can do this on a sheet of notebook paper or post it. I'm writing along with you guys because I'm always trying to come up with new assignments that connect to things that bring me joy. Oh, Kim, she said every counseling session is a class. I know, right? I can imagine. So let's take, I want to be sure to end on time. We'll take just 3 minutes of reflection, just jot really briefly down because I want to hear from you and then share my special invitation at the end. So 3 minutes starting now to just reflect in writing or in the chat if you want to share it here in the group. Okay, so you just have a few more seconds and then I'll stop sharing so we can all see each other and see what you were able to create. And yes, I saw so much idea sharing happening in the chat. That's awesome. And then, yeah, feel free to use the self-care, community care question to bring that to students. But anybody want to share the idea that you were able to generate, how you're going to leverage your joy to create something for students. Chelsea.
I'm so inspired by your storytelling works and lessons. And so I've incorporated those into my class in the fall. And the students, I'm just trying to think of an advocacy piece that you had brought up. But it was really neat for them to be filmed by Peralta TV and have that shared on their YouTube, streamed. That felt like it added a whole other element of meaning to the assignment. But I was trying to think of how I could go even further. Like if we could, I don't know. But that was my first time doing that. Before we had done the radio station, they'd done podcast, and that was really neat too. So I really love just going outside of the classroom to share stories like you do with your blog. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think because when we make the assignments meaningful and connected to students and helping them have more joy, it gets them more engaged. And that's why I say confidently that I have witnessed like a higher level engagement in my classes since I started teaching this way. Because they're like, I met with a student in office hours yesterday, and we were talking about his critical questions about care. I was like, yeah, you have great questions, but how do they connect to you? Like, I want to know your interests. How does this connect to you individually? And he was like, oh, I guess I was just kind of in autopilot doing my assignment, not really connecting it to me. And so I could tell by the end of our meeting, he was like, okay, I'm gonna get into this research thing because it's about me.
Yeah, and I'll also say that I did this the last 4 weeks of the semester when students are feeling tired, and I felt a complete energy shift when they knew that Peralta TV was coming in 3 or 4 weeks. It was project based in a way, right? They had something to work towards.
Chelsea, can I ask you what did they interview each other about? Did they have a subject or they could choose?
Have you heard of StoryCorps? The web, it's like the archive. They have a list of meaningful questions with different topics. So students
got it.
They worked together and they got to choose a couple of questions about topics that were meaningful to them. So I gave them free reign to choose whatever they wanted to, as long as there were some parameters, making sure they use like specific examples and details and that kind of thing. But
So
yeah, it's
cool.
on their website.
Awesome. Well, I'll say a little bit more about, let me reshare my screen, the storytelling project, because I wanted to invite you guys to witness a little bit of the joy that I have around storytelling. Because right now that the Black Gold Storytellers project that I mentioned actually has a museum exhibit. And I'm just like overjoyed because I was telling you that I've been doing this work since I read Isabel Wilkerson's book. I'll have to look up the year that her book came out. It was at least 5 years ago that The Warmth of Other Suns was published. Now she's moved on to a second book, Cass, and it has a movie origin. I have to put a plug for her movie. It's so awesome. But Town Treasures is an exhibit that's based on the work that I've done with the Black Gold Storytellers Project. And what that project is people in the community in Oakland, storytellers, interviewing Black elders who have moved from the South to Oakland. And so I see Professor Porter here. He's been a storyteller in the project, Black Gold. So, I mean, that's part of the joy too, is connecting to you guys. I mean, I'm getting overjoyed just because now I'm sharing it with my colleagues across Peralta. And it's like the more joy you bring to students, the more it connects to things that you do outside of the classroom. It seems like it just grows, like attracts like, and it just grows. And so on March the 16th, we'll be having a panel featuring some of the elders and storytellers sharing their stories. And the Cameron Stanford House will have this exhibit up through April the 5th. And they're open on Sundays. You can go and check out some of the stories that we've collected. And that's the invitation. And I just want to open it up for questions. We have about a few more minutes to just dialogue and have questions.
So I just, Adrienne, real quickly. So I teach video and audio. So of course they're going to make videos about their lives and what affects them and stuff like that. But I like the idea of using prompts, because as we do these exercises, like how to use the camera, how to use the audio, how to use all the tech stuff, I have them read from scripts, and I give them a choice of about 15 different scripts that they get to choose from. I try to have a nice range of male and female writers and queer writers and African American writers, etc. But I haven't ever done anything that's a prompt about self-care, and I think that is so neat to have that. I mean, these are just exercises, but if the exercise has a little more meaning, then that would be, I like that idea. And plus it gives them ideas of what to do the video on. So I give it a wide choice, and it's also a choice. You can make it a documentary, or you can make it like poetry and surrealistic. You can make any other, anything you want stylistically, but thematically, I like that you're putting out prompts that help people to think about what they want to write about.
Right.
I think that's neat. I want to add that in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be so powerful. Like, just imagine a student from like my class who has done all the research on how to care for themselves, and now they're doing a video about it.
Yeah, that's neat.
I also feel like there's so much more anxiety and depression among students who willingly talk or write about it, that it's so needed right now. So it's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Karen, because that's one of the things that has come up since I've been working with students around this on their own self-advocacy, is that a lot of our students don't have access to mental health care, or I have shared so much, like we have Laney mental health counselors or just reach out for resources and support, and just they're really dealing with a lot. There's still a lot of like, adjustment post-pandemic to studies, and just how the economy is. Our students are working so much when they come to us at Peralta, and trying to be a good student at the same time, and raising a lot of them have families. So it's a lot.
I wanted to, Adrienne, if you could go back to the slide with the Laney migration stories link.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me go back.
Thank you.
And students, when I was sharing my interest in the migration stories with students, I found a lot of common ground with, of course, our students who are immigrant students, and just the range of migration stories was, a source of joy for me too. And it was something that we could really connect over. It's like, wow, like, okay, I want to get my family story down, and why did we move, and what's the catharsis that happened, or what joy has come about in my life as a result of my migration or my move.
It would be great if students give their permission to make these stories part of the open educational resources, so that, like, for example, our department could use those stories as texts.
Oh.
And because we don't get stories like that in a lot of in textbooks that are published by the textbook industry, so making it easier for instructors to access these stories would be great.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. I think we'll have to talk, Steve. So I think moving forward, like if we got student permission, and that would even add another level of high engagement, because they would be like, oh, I'm going to be published, and this is going to help other people learn, so I think that would be awesome if we were.
Yeah, I mean, even if we just did it in-house, Adrienne, where like stories were coming out of the English department into a repository that ESOL teachers had access to, that would be awesome.
So cool. Oh my gosh.
Where's my heart emoji? I can't.
Goosebumps.
I know, right? That's what I'm just like, okay. I have to stop sharing just so I could do a heart. It's crazy. But I love that idea. And I want just to thank you all for being here today. This is being recorded. So if you just came in, I saw your message, Michael. Oh, and Sandra, I think you just came in too. Oh, there's some people who joined us. I couldn't see everybody in the presentation mode, but thank you for being here today, and go forth and be joyful. That would be my last word before we leave.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. This is really fun.
You're
Bye.
welcome.
See ya.
See ya.
Thank you, Adrienne. That was delightful, super inspiring. And thank you for being our first presenter.